All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Pastor's Roundtable. I'm your host, Ryan Latham, and I'm here with a longtime great friend, Greg Roedell, who is the pastor of Bethel Christian Assembly in Alpine, California. So, Greg, thanks for joining us, man.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, honor to be here. Not a lot going on right now, so.
Well, that's not true. There is a lot going on.
I had some free time, so, whatever.
Yeah. Well, why don't you, just for some context, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your journey, and I'd love to just kind of share with everybody who doesn't know you as well as I do, a little bit about your background.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity again. Thanks for inviting me to be on, and hope to be an encouragement to you. I've been in ministry now like 34 years, and spent 17 of it in the Central Valley of California, doing youth ministry, and then I got demoted to senior pastor about 17 years ago. So I've been a senior pastor now down in East San Diego County. So it sounds amazing, sounds beautiful and sunny, but it snowed up here last night. So
are you serious?
Yeah, I'm looking for locusts and toads and stuff that come out in the next couple of days with everything that's going on. But
wow.
Anyway, but we've been here for 17 years, senior pastor and leading the church here, and just again, I have to admit, thank God for the world of coaching nowadays, because back in the early days, I didn't know what I was doing, and I think everybody knew that. Now I don't know what I'm doing, but they know I'm being coached, so it's all good. Coaching's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Greg and I worked for Greg for about almost 4 years when we were just getting started, and I've always said this, Greg, thanks for taking a shot on me, man. We were just in college, newly married, just getting started, and Greg gave us a shot, come out and try and figure some things out. Made about 2 million steaks, and Greg just loved me through it and gave me a shot, man. So I appreciate it. But why don't you just give us a little bit of context, just kind of the church. And you've been there for a while now. What was it like when you got there? What is it like now? Alpine is a unique thing. It's a unique city. So just tell us a little bit of the context of all that.
Yeah. So 17 years ago, when I took this over, the word revitalization would be totally, I don't know that the people here would have wanted to characterize it that way, because that might have been admitting something defeatish, if you will, but it was just definitely a revitalization situation. Much older congregation. I actually pulled out our membership roll about 3 weeks ago, and I was looking on it from the month that I came here, and I literally crossed off everybody that had passed away, which was quite sobering. But then I also circled everybody that was under 40 when I came here, and I circled 6 names. So
no way.
that'll let you know exactly kind of the crew we have. And then it's East San Diego County, so I don't know the best way. I can describe it after all these years. It's where redneck meets yuppie, and it's like there's BMWs and electric blue pickup trucks with an old lady in a pink hat, and I mean you'll see everything up here. So it's quite an eclectic group. Very much you could drop this city right. You could drop the city right in the middle of Oklahoma, I think, in some ways, in terms of a God-fearing, gun-toting, you name it, all that kind of crowd. But just a warm, wonderful place. And then, of course, because I was young, my wife's young, and we had a couple young kids, I think just by the virtue of the fact that they made a good hire, on the face, we began to attract young families just because people saw there was a young pastor leading the way, and so that was kind of fun.
You also brought in a really good youth pastor right up front.
Yeah, that guy. I tell you what, if it wasn't for his wife, I probably wouldn't have hired him. So she was my snack buddy. We always talked about snacks.
It's so funny. It's so funny. But it is true that many people hire me so they can, have Sarah along the ride. So it's true.
She's awesome. She's awesome. But yeah, we've been here for all this time. Spent a lot of time just kind of preaching love and kind of instilling some of the values. And then at some point when the foundation, in a sense, got put together, I felt like we began to kind of move ahead. And about 8, 9 years ago, maybe 10, I began to ask the question about the community, and it wasn't really a negative I wasn't trying to assess the other churches in the community in that respect, but my question was, what can you tell me? I talked to some of our leaders, what can you tell me about any church in our community? And there was almost nothing in terms of response. And then I said, well, what can you tell us about us? And there were a few responses, and I said, well, we're all here, so we kind of do know what we're doing, but what would the community say about us? And so that question shifted us from really very ingrown's probably not the right word, but we were very much ingrown, okay? And we shifted it and began outreach, doing more outreach, doing kindness task force stuff, going out and just giving water away, and nothing tricky, nothing that anybody hasn't already tried to do, but we weren't doing it. So we thought, well, let's give it a shot. Let's go out and reach out to people. And in that process, at some point, we were able to get involved with the San Diego Food Bank and do some food distribution with them. And that just began, the ball rolling in terms of this city. And we're a city of about, depending on whether you come east or west, we're 13,000 or 15,000, just depends on which sign you want to believe. But it's not a big city, but there's, several million within 20 minutes of us, and so it's a big community in that respect, and but very much a small community. So when you make a wave in this community, it's noticed pretty quickly, to the point that we have actually quite a few homeless, believe it or not, and I would see them from time to time in a store or whatever, and they only know me from the food distribution, so they would, hey, pastor. I'm like, that's sweet. That's a cool feeling to have somebody holler at. So we were touching lives, and we kind of did that for quite a few years. And I have a funny story if you want to hear it about that food bank situation. So I went to a breakfast meeting with a guy that I was discipling. We met at this restaurant down in El Cajon, which is about 8 miles west of here, and just an old kind of dump restaurant, and it was attached to a bar. So it's 7:45, 8 o'clock in the morning. I walk past the doorway of the bar to go into this restaurant. And as I do, this lady comes out that I recognize perfectly from the bar. And she's like, hey, there's my pastor. And they were pretty lit already at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, yes, I am your pastor.
That's
and
it.
It was phenomenal in that sense. And please don't get all weird and legal on me, but I loved it. It just let me know we were reaching the right people. And that was I just laughed and chuckled. That was hilarious. So, but yeah, we started doing that. Then the reality of it is we did that for a few years, and it became problematic. So the problem was we were, the way we were doing it. So we brought stuff into the building, and before you knew it, we had critters, and that wasn't, we can't have cockroaches in the nursery or a rat running. Yeah. So we literally had to shut it down, spend a couple of years. Well, it didn't take a couple of years, but we spent a little bit of time, getting all the critters gone. And then we took some time to assess how we were doing it and just retooled the entire thing. And I'm telling you, in October, we restarted that ministry, and it has just been amazing. Absolutely amazing. So
that's great. That's great. I love all that. So, I mean, Greg, as we're talking, we're in the midst of this COVID-19 thing. And, I mean, your church is a few hundred, right? And in a smaller city, about 20, 25, 30 minutes outside of San Diego. And before all this happened, let's jump back a couple months ago. What was your online presence at that point as a church?
You know what? We had our website. That's about it. We would do Facebook from time to time. I would jump on and do a Facebook Live to try and generate interest this direction. But that's really it. An audio podcast would be uploaded on a Sunday afternoon for the, maybe 5 people that listen to it. I don't know. I've never seen the analytics. I'm not sure. But, you do certain things we're doing. All the pastors out there know what I'm talking about. We do certain things because sometimes we're afraid not to do them. We have an ad in the paper, but like, I think we have 1,000 people that read our paper, and kind of like, I don't want to not be there in case somebody moves to town. So there's a lot of things like that we do, and we just, you definitely have to worry about cost. But our online presence was pretty minimal. Now,
I mean, like most churches, a website, podcast, every once in a while, a Facebook Live thing. So, I mean, Greg, you're not a 30-year-old millennial that grew up online, right? I mean, shocker, right? Sorry. But, I mean, you're not that. And so what's that been like for you to go from essentially not being online necessarily in terms of you're at least on video and stuff, to now that's all you're doing? So what has that process been like for you guys?
Honestly, it's for me personally, it's been crazy. In fact, I think you might be able to see the question mark. It's
it's the spinning wheel, the spinning wheel.
That's perfect. I should superimpose that right now, because I've had that spinning wheel quite a bit in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, the challenge is just, my encouragement is, connect with who you can connect with, that's younger than you. If you're I'm 55, so if you're my age or whatever, and some of you guys are way sharper than I am. I think I'm pretty technological. I have been completely clueless when it comes to the streaming world, and I'm learning words and phrases that I never knew. But the key thing there is, for me at least, is leaning on some folks that know what they're doing, and then the reality of it is, a lot of times, because it's somewhat new to them as well, because they haven't been doing it, they know the technology, but starting to do it and implement it and putting streaming services in and recording stuff live and all that. When we go to start executing, we realize that even some of my quote unquote experts, we find out really quickly what they don't know. And so we're all learning together. We're doing our best. I really believe that it's not about perfection right now. Even right now, it's like I got a door in the background. I got a little whiteboard there. It's like my forehead shining. It's not about perfection, but it's about presence. It's about people want to know that we care. And I just want to encourage, pastors and people they just want to know that you're caring. You're giving it a shot. And I thought of this too. Shout out to all you pastors out there that didn't have to close because your group's so small that you didn't have to close. And in all honesty, my heart goes out to you. I keep going. Don't quit, man. Go for it. I'm almost jealous you got to meet. And so it's kind of it's a double-edged sword in a big way, all of a sudden, to be a big church. And then even imagine I think of larger churches, everything's contextual, but larger churches that, they may even have $1 million a week budget for all I know for some of these churches. And I don't know how we're going to do it. I do this. God's in control. So I'm going to keep smiling. But it's been definitely a challenge to figure out how to adjust and adapt ministry for these times.
Yeah. So talk to us. Just what are some of the things that you are doing online right now? I know it's by the time we even put this up, it's going to change. But what are some of the things you're doing right now?
For sure. Well, we were a little later to the game than a few folks, but that was because I was trying to get the technology down. But beginning this past Wednesday, we started a kind of a calendar of online daily events. And I think there's a balance to that. Maybe I'm wrong, but my opinion is there might be a balance to that. I don't think people want us to invade their lives for the next several months with online stuff and all that. People still have lives, even though in a way they don't, because they're stuck at home. But what can we do to get into their home and maybe just augment whatever they're doing? So we did like a Wednesday night worship time, and it was me with my guitar and right here. And then I spent maybe 20 minutes doing a little devotion, and I had a solid crowd that was online with me, and that was cool. And then, we did some stuff with the kids yesterday, and my wife.
Greg, let me just say, for those that are watching, I tuned in for a little while, and the thing that I really appreciate about you've always been good at this, but it's just you, and you're authentic and you're real, and you push go live or whatever, and it's you, and you're like, hey, sorry guys, I'm still trying to set up. I'm a one-man show, and you're kind of still got, it's not super polished. It's not, all there, and you're just doing what you can with what you have. and you're being honest about it. You're being real about it. You're not trying to have it all figured out. You're just, hey man, this is your pastor, trying to do what I can. Right. And
Yeah.
you're being honest about that, and you're being real about it. And you're just going for it. And, I mean, you're even like, hey, someone let me know if the audio is going on, like, I don't even know, like, let me know if the audio is working. Right. And so I just think that is something that's an encouragement for guys that are out there that are maybe struggling with it. I mean, I know you've had a lot of issues, and you've been kind of honest about that. So what have been some of those issues, and how have you kind of fought through that?
I went live on Wednesday night with our first thing, and I literally tested everything all day. And when I went live, sure enough, didn't have the volume, or didn't have a switch turned on. And so my mic didn't work for the first 5 minutes online. I'm talking away. I got people commenting. I'm like, oh my goodness. I stopped the thing, started over. And then, you know what, people did jump right back on. And that was Wednesday night. And I literally just, at one point, I had a couple songs planned. I had a little devotional plan, but in all honesty, I said at one point, I said, well, I'm just going to do what I do when I get along with God with my guitar. And the unfortunate or fortunate part, because authenticity is authenticity, but I'm a crybaby, man. I'm like, even just visiting with my friend Ryan here, it's just, emotional in some ways, but I got about 3 songs in, and I'm kind of trying to worship the Lord, and I'm weepy and can't even get a note out. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. And at the same time, whatever, it's who I am. And so I think that's the key. Like I had several people comment, thanks so much. And I'm like, I listened back. I'm like, yeah, there was a good note. Well, that was a great flat note. It's like, so it wasn't about the voice. It wasn't about what the guitar was into. It was just, you know what? I just wanted to praise God for a few moments in front of some people. And actually, I think I got emotional when I just forgot about the podcast or the meeting, the Facebook Live, and I just said, I'm gonna get along with God. I did, and I just kind of took everybody along for the ride. So that's one of the things that's happened recently.
Yeah, and then you were telling me that you are now doing Zoom for some of your men's groups, your women's groups, things like that. So how are those going?
Yeah, we did our first women's thing yesterday. They had a solid group showed up last night. I had about a dozen guys for my guys life group, which that's great because my normal guys life group is about 5 guys, which is perfect. It's a great size to have conversation. But as it sits, 12 guys in a room on a Zoom call, only 4 or 5 even talked anyway. So, but it was awesome. It wasn't awkward. We prayed together. I kind of kept thinking, like, what is this going to be like? Because it's all brand new. I got a bunch of, Brady Bunch squares on my screen, and who's talking at what time. You know what? It's all working out. It's all working out. But the key thing there was it just the beauty. We connected for an hour, and it honestly went like 5 minutes. It seemed like it was no time at all. So
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, again, you're just trying to figure it out, right? I mean, you're
totally.
You're just trying to make it. So I want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
You had alluded to it earlier, the food distribution program that's kind of catching some wind right now. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what that food distribution is? I mean, I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but tell us a little bit about it, kind of what it is. And then we'll dive into what it looked like before and then what it looks like currently. So just tell us a little bit about what it is.
Well, what we're doing right now, we basically have a food distribution every Thursday. We calling it Harvest Thursdays because the majority of the stuff that we get is fresh fruits and vegetables, which is the most expensive stuff that people are getting in stores. And so we get all this stuff through the San Diego Food Bank and just distribute it. And what we have been doing over the last several months is we have it all set up under, pop-up tents in the parking lot, and people walk by with their grocery carts or their grocery bags, and they just get what they would like. And if they don't like, rutabagas or whatever, they don't take them. They just leave them for somebody else. But when this all started, and let me back up for a second. So we started this in October-ish, and we've been serving about 100 to 120 cars a week. And when I say that mostly is a single family. Once in a great while, then we would get, hey, we're 2 families, we just rode together. And so we would hook them up with double the amount or whatever. But as soon as this thing hit and we realized we were under massive constraints to keep the social distancing happening and all that, my biggest fear was that San Diego Food Bank wasn't even going to be available to us, but thankfully they're essential. They're an essential service. That makes us an essential service. That's pretty awesome. And so we connected with our distributor from the San Diego Food Bank. They said, we're still going. So we put it out there, and our first distribution was a week ago Thursday, since this crisis has hit. And a week ago Thursday, we did drive-through only. And so to give you a picture, our parking lot is about 80 car spaces, and which isn't a lot, but it's a fairly small parking lot. The parking lot of the church across the street is about 20. And we had cars, single file line in a matrix going around our parking lot. And the very first one, we did over 8,000 pounds of groceries, and we served 375 cars, I want to say it was. The numbers are crazy. Hey, I'll make some numbers up. Anyway, no, we did 375 cars that first week, and a lot of them were carpooling. They would say, yeah, we're two families, and I recognize them from other events, but they came together. It was raining, so that helped to make sure everybody stayed in their car. And so as they drove by, we just dropped a bag of groceries in their trunk, or several bags, as they went through the gauntlet of different items that we had. And there was no everybody had gloves and hands and all that. So that was the first week we did it. Well, word definitely got out. Wow. Because there's a lot of desperation out there. And then yesterday we did our second event, and it was 25 cars, something like that. And almost all of them were double families. It was amazing, because they realized the week before the traffic jam. So we had the double lines going through our parking lot, out on the street and across to the other church. So we actually had to have them stage on the other side of the street and then wave over. We'll take 5 more. It was like we're a bouncer at a bar or something, We'll take 5 more. As 5 would leave, 5 would come. We just kept doing it. So it was crazy. But so the couples came this week, or the families that came this week, a lot of them did carpool because they realized the traffic jam. And so we literally, from about 9:15 till noon, it was non-stop cars. Wow. And I was actually took a look at everything that we had at the moment when we got rolling, and I did pray with our team. I said, hey, let's pray for a multiplication miracle, because I personally couldn't see it. I just couldn't see how we were going to do it. And we ended up having, we actually had a pallet of lettuce, romaine lettuce, and we had a pallet of, I want to say it was apples that were left over. I mean, we gave away so much, but we actually had some left over. So that's how it's evolved. The news media made it out. One of, I think, 6 stations that are in town made it out, but it's kind of the one that's, monitored by our local citizens a lot more. So the word got out, and then it wasn't very long. And I would have people driving in and go, hey, we saw you guys on the news. We came on over. Wow. I was like, oh my goodness. So it was mind-boggling. The beauty for me was our volunteers absolutely adjusted and adapted so quick that we didn't have a glitch. I kept waiting for someone to get run over. I mean, if you could have seen it, but there was not a glitch. People jumped in, traffic controls, handing out food. It was just amazing. So hats off to all of our volunteers, because it certainly wasn't my leadership. I just gave them the opportunity, and they stepped up. It was huge. So
that's great. So I love that. Let's jump back. When this whole thing started, obviously you weren't thinking, hey, we're going to be able to serve people in a pandemic, right? I mean, so what was the thought process? Why did you even start this food distribution to begin with?
Well, even backing up, when we initially started an Alpine food bank, we're not calling it that any longer because we don't store anything on premises. But when we initially started it, I actually didn't know that there was the need. I just thought, well, let's just, because Alpine, again, a lot of folks, I heard somebody describe it as a rich ghetto. A lot of folks have money, but it's just like right now, a lot of people have things and items, but if you're not working, you're not making ends meet. So we would have people drive up for a food bank and, a Cadillac Escalade, but they needed groceries because it is what it is. So very quickly, the judgment issue died. There was no judgment. It's like, you need food. So, but we didn't know there was a need until we started. And then it was like, wow. And so I actually assessed the need to be about 100 or so families. After several years of doing it, it was about 100, 125 families. But now, with where we're at currently, and quite frankly, I'm a little concerned about next Thursday, because if we had almost 200 extra cars this last week, and so the word's spreading quickly.
Yeah.
And so y'all can pray for me, because it's huge.
We will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you started this. I mean, so it takes us back. It started out as a food bank where you guys were actually storing food and making it available throughout the week. Is that true?
Yeah, we had a whole storehouse of canned and dry goods, and then someone purchases a huge freezer, so we had stuff that we could freeze in the freezer. And but again, it just became incredibly problematic to store items here within our facility, and even just from the cost standpoint of running that big old freezer, all this, it became hard. And so again, we just retooled, and now it's just way smarter, way harder. And the system we had before was a Tuesday, we brought everything in, sorted it all out. Wednesday, we distributed it. Now it all comes on a truck by 9 o'clock. We pull it off the truck, line it up, give it away at noon, sweep up, and the parking lot is clean. And I'm like, what? This is, so it's completely shifted to something that's so doable, so manageable. And I'm honored that we got involved. Like, we re-established it back in October, and I'm just thrilled we did that, because it's set us up for this moment right now.
Yeah. So how was that how did you build that connection with the food bank to even negotiate this kind of partnership?
Well, thankfully we didn't have to re-establish our relationship, because we did allow our relationship to go, and we would have had to do a application process and all that. Well, we found a local pastor, Hispanic pastor, who had already started a ministry of going to the food bank and picking up stuff in trucks. So he has the entire thing. So literally he does all of the work practically. And it's, he shows up with a truck full of stuff and drops it off. We do all the work and put it all back on his truck and send him away. And it's like, wow. So our relationship with him freed me. Like, I'm free to just minister to folks and walk through the line and talk to people. And it's just completely different than what we were doing before, where, if I wasn't working and if every volunteer, it was all hands on deck, but now we've got enough volunteers that I'm able to just minister to folks and talk to them. So it definitely shifted over the years. So.
That's great. So Greg, I don't know if you're here yet. I don't know if many pastors are here yet, but I think they're about to be. But have you begun to think through when all this kind of settles down? I don't know that we're going to go back to normal, right? I don't know that we're going to go back to what it was in January. I think that we're kind of permanently changed at some level. But have you begun to think about when we begin to meet in large groups again, people are coming to the church? Have you thought about, hey, maybe there's some of these online things that we might keep?
Completely. That realization actually hit me yesterday. I thought, my goodness, there's some tools that I think a lot of churches are learning all of a sudden, but there's some real valuable tools here that I just was clueless. And so I'm looking at this as a massive godsend in that sense, because I think that there's some things to help us be efficient in the future, in terms of, I don't know, as an example, membership classes, discipleship stuff that you can do on a Zoom meeting, or just some of that stuff is like, this is all new to, like, I'm definitely quite old school in some ways, in that I came up through the 80s and the early 90s in church life. And so I know the way things flow, but man, this has opened up a new world, and it could make us massively more efficient, I think, if we play it right. But there's just some idea, and I think it's all coming together still. I think there's probably greater minds than mine that I'm going to be stealing from in the future. Ideas that they've came up with is just a perfect the perfect scenario for, like I said, again, a membership class where you're not having to bring people out on a Sunday for a lunch and they can go through, or even if it's 3 or 4 sessions where when they finish this session, they can click that they finished and they move on to the next session. I don't know how that all works, but I'm thinking there might be some things here that help us to be more efficient. But the caveat for me is I think we got to be very careful to not lose the personal connection.
Yeah.
And when I say that, what I mean by that is, as an example, I encouraged our people, listen, this is the time where we're all socially distanced, of course, but we're not emotionally or spiritually distanced. And so please, I'm going to call everybody I can call. But if you know somebody, if you think of somebody, if they come to your mind, pick up the phone and call. And my encouragement was, and I think this is from the Lord, I won't say it's thus saith the Lord, but my encouragement was, don't text them. Pick up the stinking phone and let them hear your voice. Because, and I get text is the real world now, and it's quick to do a text. You don't have to get bothered. But in all honesty, man, pick up the phone and hear the voices. And as an aside to that, yesterday when I was in the food distribution line, so you think 2 cars on each side, and I just walk down the middle and I would just say hi and greet each one. And it was amazing. People were so excited to talk to somebody.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, and after a couple cars, I started telling them, I say, hey, listen, I'm just lonely. So I'm looking to talk to somebody. So, and they were just kind of laughed and we had a few interactions, but people, because they've been cooped up, so they're desperate to talk. So my encouragement is, as we begin to embrace the technology, I think let's at least be sure we consider the personal nature of it and the lack thereof if we get too impersonal. So that's my 2 cents, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, people have been forced online. So a lot of churches that were late adopters or reluctant or scared if, hey, will our people watch it, or like, is it worth it? I mean, now they're on, right? And so I think you're right. I think a lot of churches will continue it. We'll see. But even like you said, membership classes, I think people are going to become more open and aware of saying, man, I can do this online. I don't have to go to church, or I can do it on my own time because it's pre-recorded. And so, but yeah, I think it's good. So, what would you say to somebody that, man, is just feeling insecure about going online, and man, I'm not a televangelist, I'm not a Facebook Live celebrity. What encouragement might you give to that pastor that's maybe a little bit reluctant to go and do this?
Well, my encouragement is you're learning and I'm learning. We're all learning at the same time, but and it's easy to get intimidated by it. In all honesty, we mentioned it earlier, just be authentic. And the reason why I say it that way is because I did a pre-recorded thing early on, like last week, just to let our church know where we were at. And that was, I think it came out okay, but in all honesty, it came out horrible in my mind because there were cuts and edits, because I would get a couple sentences out and then I'd stumble over my words. So quite frankly, when I just went Facebook Live, and I'm sure I'm stumbling over my words even on this, but it's about being real, right? So when I just go Facebook Live and go for it, spend a few minutes formulating my thoughts and jot some things down, and then just go Facebook Live, it just seems to work way better. I've had people tell me, my own family, you just seem more real when you're live as opposed to the, when you do the pre-recorded thing. And so, I think that's where I
think also the expectations are a little bit lower too.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Yeah, that's true. I think I was just putting too much pressure on myself to be polished.
Yeah. And I think for you, the expectations are lower because it's like, hey, I'm just going live. We're talking, as opposed to, man, this is a polished video that I've edited, so the expectations for you and for the listeners or watchers are even different. So I think you're right.
And probably too, another thing would be just help you just free yourself up from unrealistic expectations, your own, but then what people are thinking. Honestly, last night online, it wasn't awkward. It wasn't weird. My guys were going for it. They didn't feel weird about it. It was just fresh. It was new. It was different. So you're going to, if you're out there and you're struggling with like the insecurity of it all. And like I said, I'm a massive perfectionist, which turns me into a procrastinator sometimes, because if I don't know that I'm going to be able to get it right, I want to put it off. But there's no putting anything off right now. It's go time nonstop. And so but because I'm a perfectionist like that, I think through things and I have the perfect picture in my mind. And then when it doesn't come out, like I'm looking at my picture behind me right now and it looks like it's crooked. But anyway, but that's what I'm talking about. Stuff like that, just it glitches in my head. And so just free yourself up from that and get real. And I think the more I free myself up as I'm embracing the new technological age, I'm hoping some really good 20-somethings jump in here so that I can really be free and not just, they just point at me and go, start talking. And I'm like, thank you. But right now I'm doing my own technical work. So
it's great. Yeah. I mean, it's so good just to see what you guys are doing, and you're not waiting for perfection, because if we wait for that, we're never going to put anything out. And so, I mean, I know some people have told me just, hey, you just got to do it. Your first couple are not going to be good, but if you wait to be good, you'll never do it. And so you just got to start, and you just got to get going, and people will have grace for you right now, and just keep going out there. So appreciate, Greg, all you're doing. Appreciate, your willingness to try and to keep going. And man, what you're doing, we'll have links to kind of the news clip that you referenced
cool.
down in the comments. So check that out. But I really thank you for what you're doing, serving the community, and just helping people out. So hopefully this podcast is helpful. So thanks, Greg, for jumping on.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Super proud of you guys, Ryan and Sarah, and your kids. Doggone it, you didn't have kids, but now they're able to beat you up. They're able to beat you up now. That's crazy.
I'm not old. They are.
Yeah, I know. It's the way it goes. But we thank you. Love you guys so much, and we're gonna pray for you as you guys pray for us, and let's hey, body of Christ, let's stick together, because what we can control is our smile and our attitude and our faith level, and everything else is out of our control. So obviously it's in God's control, but that's what we can control. So love you, man. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, thanks.